All right, so the throne speech is our government's agenda for the coming year, talking about legislation and a bunch of different plans that we have. And this year, our throne speech is a plan to Trump-proof our economy, to fix healthcare, and of course, to help you with the cost of living. And one of the new things is that this year, not only is it translated into French and published in English, but it's also translated into one of the first languages of Manitoba, which is Anishinaabe. So we're very, very happy about having that to share with everybody in Manitoba. In terms of healthcare, we've been really hard at work doing a lot of progress on the hiring front. As we meet here today, 3,500 new frontline healthcare workers in the system. About 1,200 of them are nurses. We've also moved about 100 Manitobans out of tents and into homes, which is positive news for everybody here. We've taken action on lowering the price of energy, whether that's a hydro rate freeze or cuts to the gas tax, and then of course helping you with housing costs, another priority of ours. Today you're going to hear us honor many people. Actually, I just crossed paths with one of the RCMP officers who was instrumental in stopping the situation in Wastewater earlier this year that led to the tragic loss of life. Very sad story about a high school football player who we lost in the province. We're going to be doing something to honor his team. And of course, we had a very devastating but also a deadly wildfire season. And so finding a way to honor the parents of the Noel brothers and ensure that their memory will be commemorated. So as we learn the lessons of the wildfire season, we're always taking some time to commemorate the impacts as well too. When we're looking ahead, we're also talking about taking further action on grocery prices to save you money. When we're talking about Trump-proofing the economy, we're adding a mega project to Western Manitoba, a $3 billion combustion turbine facility that will start by burning natural gas. Hopefully in the future we'll transition to renewable methane or hydrogen. And this is all about making sure that we in Manitoba are energy independent, that we're putting people in hard hats and steel toes to work, and that we have the power that we need for the coldest days in winter, but also to power our economic future. And then some important changes in the healthcare system too. Introducing a patient safety charter so that you know that when you go to an emergency room or you go to a hospital that you're going to get the health care that you need. Also, we know that when we talk about nurses and people on the front lines, mandatory overtime has been a major, major complaint, so we are going to end that. And then, of course, when we're talking about making sure that you, the patient in the bed, the patient in the hospital getting the care that you need, starting to move towards nurse-to-patient ratios, staff-to-patient ratios, and priority aspects of our healthcare system. That's on the agenda. So there's a lot of cool things in the throne speech today. And the throne speech, discours du trône, très excité, et puis des priorités dans le système de santé, et puis avec une vie plus abordable sont nos priorités. So just wanted to make a few quick questions or quick comments there, and happy to take any questions that folks have.
The overpass at Carberry, why did you decide on an overpass given that the Transportation Department had a recommendation? It didn't go over well in Carberry, as we saw. So what made you settle on an overpass versus a wider median or some of the other options?
So this intersection is different now than any other intersection in Manitoba because of the loss of life and how sad it was to see those seniors passing away. And because this intersection is different with that scrutiny and that history, it means that we have that extra responsibility to listen to community voices on this. And so when we first started the consultation, I think we were very clear that an R-cut and an overpass provide similar levels of safety. The overpass, on their scoring system may be slightly safer, but generally comparable. But given the community outcry, given the opposition in the community, and just looking at this intersection and saying, this is not the time, given the sensitivity and the history, to overrule a community's wishes or to go against the wishes of the grassroots. So again, we did some legwork hearing from those consultations. We did our internal process, figuring out how do we redo our capital plan to accommodate for this new overpass. And I think we're landing in a place that will make the community happy, but hopefully Manitobans satisfied that we are honoring the specific legacy that happened at 1 and 5.
What are you talking about on costs and on the time frame as well? Because it will take a whole lot longer probably to build this.
Yeah, well, I think on the time frame, and I have asked people in Carberry and the other communities like Dauphin who've been affected by this to be flexible with us in understanding that in order to get this right, it's going to take more time, particularly in the lead time phase, meaning like this year basically, because we had this additional, let's call it 6 months where we went back and redid our plan. So I think the timeline is still on track to see land acquisition and then moving towards construction along the same timeline. But again, we've spent a few months on this process to get it right, and as a result, we're pushing the timeline back by that amount of time. In terms of cost, yeah, we'll get you a final number offline, but you're looking north of $100 million.
Tell us about this $3 billion natural gas burning facility in Westman. Where does it go and why is it being built, sir?
Well, there's an existing facility there, which is part of the reason that we're working on this site, because we already have some of the infrastructure in place. This is about making sure that we're Trump-proofing our economy with more investment to put people to work. We're Trump-proofing our economy by having power, sovereignty, that we're no longer as reliant on bringing in electricity during the coldest days of our winter, and just making sure that as our economy grows, we're going to have the capacity to meet the needs of Manitobans and future business as well too. But at the same time, these are dual-use turbines, meaning it's natural gas today, but that could be renewable methane. That could be hydrogen in the future, because we are committed to a net zero. We are committed to a clean environment future. And we've got to meet the needs of today while preparing for that future. So these turbines give us the opportunity, 3 turbines in total, totaling 750 megawatts. We might go bigger in the future, but for now we're talking 750, 3 turbines. And the idea there is we have to be able to have firm power capacity. We're adding 600 megawatts of wind. Right? We're doing demand side management and all these other energy initiatives, but we had a peak last January that was a historic record in Manitoba. And as our economy grows, as we build more housing, as we try to bring in more business, we need this capacity.
2 quick follows. First of all, is the federal government involved in this as well?
Well, maybe too soon to say. I raised this with Prime Minister Carney in our meeting on Monday, or Sunday rather.
And does this eliminate the need for other options as of solar or smart nuclear, those types of things, as well as our energy needs need to be met in the years to come? Does this help address this, sir?
This helps us to ensure that our economy is going to be able to grow, that you're going to be able to heat your home in the coldest months of the year. But if you look at what's going on in the economy right now, we are in an era of energy addition. Energy addition. We need more power. And that's where the economy is going. So for us in Manitoba, this is probably not the last word on more power being brought online. We're doing the 600 megs of wind with Indigenous partners. We're doing this 750 megawatts of combustion turbines. And then from there, more renewables, more capacity to the grid, as well as with hydro retrofits.
On the staff to patient ratios and the patient charter, will there be any consequences for health facilities, regional health authorities if they fail to meet the terms of those? And what recourse will patients have if their charter rights are breached when they show up to an ER or some other health facility service?
So there's a lot of good questions, some of which we'll have to hold off on answering until we introduce these bills. So 3 bills coming. But the patient safety charter is basically about giving you the confidence that when you show up at the ER or at the hospital, you're there to get well. You have highly motivated, great staff who are there to take care of you. And yet, too often in Manitoba, people feel frustrated, or they feel that their visit didn't go the way that it ought to have. And we just want to take steps to ensure that your safety as a patient is going to be improved. At the same time, because we're looking to fix healthcare, lower wait times, we got to take care of the staff as well. The staff are the crucial piece to delivering you the healthcare experience that you want. So we have these two other priorities on the staff to patient ratio and on ending mandatory overtime. So when we look at those two priority areas, it's important to understand that we've added 3,500 staff so far during our time in government. So we have the staff in the province today. Why is it that the health authorities are still mandating nurses to work overtime, mandating other allied health professionals to work overtime? This has to stop. And when we think about patient safety, we think about the nurse to patient ratio, ending mandatory overtime. I look at it this way. Nobody here would get on a plane where a pilot has been mandated to work 2 shifts back to back. And yet, we're supposed to do that when we go to the emergency room? No, I don't think so. So having a safe experience for you, the patient, it's about having a guaranteed standard that you understand that you should respect, or expect rather. But having the staff have the work-life balance, the necessary time to recharge, the necessary help on the shift with them to be able to deliver a high-quality patient experience for you. These things all have to work together in order for us to improve healthcare and get you the care that you need.
What's the priority area
Just
for
to
that?
follow up on that, those things all sound like great ideas, but are they just going to be like guidelines, or is this actually going to be enforceable? I mean, you can pass legislation, and there is legislation in place in many areas where there isn't really any teeth, or there's no real consequences to failing to meet the terms of what's in the legislation. So there's one thing to put it into legislation as sort of a guideline, but is it actually going to be enforceable? Because that's what patients would want to know. If health facilities are not meeting the terms of these provisions, what happens?
So what I would say is nurturing compassion for the people doing their best on the front lines and hard, immediate accountability for the management. That'll be the guiding principle.
The
Yeah, so I
plan
was just
now,
gonna flesh that out a bit
Yeah, go ahead,
if you don't mind. Just to say that we have added the staff. We are spending more money than ever on healthcare. So I'm confident that those on the front lines are doing their job. We need the administration to do their job now, and there will be standards. And again, we're going to do this in a way that we want people to succeed, right? Like, we don't want to set people up for failure. And that's why we're saying the staff to patient ratio will start in priority areas. We're not going to go across the board and say like staff to patient everywhere, because we'll say, let's break off these priority areas of the healthcare system, get them right there first. Similarly too with mandating an end to OT. That is going to be a hard rule. Like, again, traditional times, mandatory overtime was there if there was like a big event that happened, right? Like some big wreck on the highway, you could mandate people to stay. But over the past 10 years, let's call it, it's become just an HR tool. When you don't have the staff, you just mandate the people to stay, and it leads to a lot of burnout, leads to a lot of hard times for nurses and other people. And we're going to say, we've given you the staff, now you have to solve this problem.
So a hard rule, meaning if a nurse declines to take that overtime shift when they're supervised,
No, no.
you've got to stay.
No, like,
If they say you got to stay, and then the nurse says, I don't have to.
no,
You're not
the
gonna-
idea, yeah, so, okay, I think I understand better. The idea is like the hospital management can no longer mandate you. The hospital management,
Declines, they don't face, because right now if the nurse declines,
correct.
consequence for the nurse.
Yeah, the consequence should be on the management. Why, with so many new nurses working in the system, have you not staffed up? That's where we're taking the new direction with these bills.
Priority areas.
I think
Or
we'll
the
see-
mandatory overtime and the patient ratio.
Well, I think, like, everybody always thinks about the emergency rooms, right? So I think that'll be an important area that we look to first, but some of these details, we're gonna have to wait for the legislative introduction.
On the supervised consumption site, do you have a new exact location? And does the timeline not seem ambitious given the federal regulatory process?
Yeah, it is contingent on the federal regulatory process. We have an application prepared but not submitted. It will be submitted in short order. And so, yeah, there is, I guess, some flex that will be necessary on that. And in terms of location, it is in that area, I guess, west of what was previously proposed. So we're looking at a specific location to
There's an
apply.
area where you own some land there west of Maine, north of.
Yeah, I don't know what specific area of land you're referring to, so I can't tell you 100%. But yeah,
Top of Princess.
Everyone in Manitoba who drives up Main Street, Higgins and Main, it looks terrible. It looks like there's this humanitarian crisis going on, but we also know that there's a bunch of the service providers there, whether it's the Access Clinic, it's Salvation Army, it's Siloam Mission. So that seems like the area to locate this, right? Because if you want to refer somebody to a service to get well, you know, just send them down the street. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit west of those areas.
So you got the WRHA there, so it's towards Silo.
It might be further than that. I don't know.
Premier, just to follow up to the earlier thing on the charter and the language, and I realize this is legislation, but it is very difficult to sue a physician in this country. And I'm wondering if the charter will contain language, you say about accountability, that will enable people who are not happy with the healthcare system. And I realize you want to create a different culture here, but what sort of accountability you're looking at? Because ultimately when you introduce legislation, charters, laws, that's where it ends up sometimes, is that in court. So are you saying here that you're looking at language that would really, and Tom and I have covered these stories for years, and Steve as well, that somehow that there would be relief ultimately to the courts where people are not satisfied with the answers or the outcome of their loved one in hospital? Because that's difficult now. It's very, very difficult. And I'm just wondering if that's the commitment or that's the vision you have for this charter.
There is an existing accountability process for most people who work on the front lines, whether it's through the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the College of, for nurses and, the other regulated professions. But who holds the hospital administration accountable? Who holds the service delivery organization, whether that's the Regional Health Authority or another one? Who holds them accountable? And I think that's a bit of what we hope to answer with this legislation.
The weapons you're, sorry, maybe this has been announced, but what weapons are you banning from which public places? Sorry if you could remind me.
No machetes in public parks, on
this is the previous.
buses. No, this is a new bill. This is new legislation that's coming in. I think there's a few tweaks here. We did the regulation on the sales of long-bladed weapons, machetes, right? I think there's some additional areas that we want to make sure there's regulation. Facebook Marketplace being one example. Let's make sure that, machetes and other dangerous weapons aren't being sold on Facebook Marketplace. But then also, too, it seems like a no-brainer, but you shouldn't be able to have these things in a public place like a park. So just making that another tool for law enforcement to be able to use.
And you can now. Could you take a machete on a bus
I would say no,
legally?
but we're bringing it in legislation.
So you're banning, sorry, I just want to be clear, you're banning machetes in parks, buses, places like that?
Yeah, we can get you maybe a better list offline, yeah, but that's the gist of that part of it, the legislation. But again, there's the regulating the marketplace sales and stuff.
Just back on supervised consumption sites, you have January as that timeline. It is contingent on Health Canada. What's giving you the confidence that you could even hit that goal by January? Has there been discussions with Health Canada already?
Oh, on the regulatory? Yeah, well, I think civil servants from both the federal and provincial level always engage with one another, so there's usually a bit of dialogue prior to something like an application being submitted. I think the confidence from our side is basically we've done a lot of legwork on this. We've done a lot of consultation around the previous site. We'll have to do a bit more consultation on the new location once we share that. But other than those public process steps, this facility is ready to go, by and large.
En lien avec le Manitoba véritablement bilingue,
Oui.
est-ce qu'il y a une date précise dans laquelle vous allez présenter les consultations qui ont eu lieu et qu'est-ce que vous comptez faire avec les résultats?
Bien, la première chose, une des premières priorités pour nous, c'est de joindre l'organisme international de la francophonie. Alors, j'ai écrit à M. Legault au Québec. J'ai écrit aussi à Emmanuel Macron en France, qui est le chef de cet organisme, pour leur demander de l'appui, pour que Manitoba pourrait commencer de participer et puis, dans l'avenir, aussi de joindre l'organisme international de la francophonie. Pour réussir à rejoindre un État où nous sommes une province véritablement bilingue, je pense que ça, c'est plusieurs années, à cause des autres investissements dans le système de santé et puis dans des autres services publics qu'on devrait avancer avant que ça. Alors, avec les sondages et puis les consultations, j'espère qu'on pourrait les partager peut-être la fin de cette année, l'année prochaine. Oui.
Est-ce que c'est possible de répéter en français pourquoi le gouvernement veut arrêter les heures supplémentaires pour les infirmières?
Bien, ceux qui travaillent dans le système de santé, les infirmières, les médecins, tout le monde, ils font un job merveilleux. Mais il y a des structures en place qui leur mettent au défi. Les heures supplémentaires, un problème d'avoir plus d'aide des autres infirmières, choses comme ça. Alors, nous avons, pendant les dernières 2 années, ajouté plus de monde dans le système de santé. Nous avons embauché beaucoup d'infirmières, beaucoup de médecins. Alors, maintenant, on dit que c'est temps pour les hôpitaux de trouver une façon de guérir les défis vécus par les infirmières et médecins et les autres qui travaillent dans le système.
Juste pour conclure, il n'y a pas de date précise pour la présentation des résultats? On dit juste bientôt. Est-ce que vous avez une date précise?
Sur les enjeux francophones?
Sur la présentation des résultats des consultations qu'il y a eu dans les derniers mois.
Non, j'espère peut-être au fin de cette année ou peut-être l'année prochaine. Yeah.
On the sick notes, there's different limits. I mean, presumably somebody will have to produce a sick note if they're off for a month or something. So where are you going to draw the line? Is it 3 days, a week?
It's when an employee's been absent for 7 consecutive days. So we did consultations here with employers, with labor, and they came back with some ideas of how to move forward here. Again, right now, I think we're trying to have that flexibility to free up doctors to be able to spend their time with patients who are presenting with maybe more urgent needs than requiring a sick note. We're trying to make sure that employers still have, what they need in terms of the relationship with employees, and that, we make life easier for the average person out there. So again, if you're off sick for a few days because of the flu, I think everyone agrees, okay, that's something we can work with. And so 7 days is sort of where we landed as saying, beyond that, it seems like maybe that is the point where documentation and a bigger plan in terms of return to work and all those things will come into place.
That's 7 work days, correct?
Yeah, 7 consecutive calendar days, sorry.
Calendar days.
Yeah.
So Premier, are there enough nurses now to end mandatory overtime?
Yes, that's why we're moving forward with this.
The nurses union says there's not, so I can see, I can already see an issue. I mean, maybe by the time the legislation comes.
Now, there's 1,200 more nurses working in the healthcare system today.
I'm not disagreeing with your number, I'm saying the nurses union is still saying we still don't see enough change here.
We're going to end mandatory overtime.
And
What do you ask?
what about a reliance on private agency nurses? The province has been moving away to that.
That's right,
From
we've
that.
been moving away
But wouldn't healthcare system delivery organizations need private agency nurses ostensibly more?
We
to
don't
fill
think
in
so.
the gaps?
No. We think we have a performance issue with our management in healthcare, and we need to push them further.
When government asks regional health authorities why they still have mandatory overtime, when you've provided them with 1,200 more nurses, what do they say?
Well, we got to reschedule the meeting where we're going to talk about this first, and then, something came up. No, So people on the front lines, I have a ton of confidence in you. We've been listening. This is some of the issues. There's some great people in the administration of healthcare, in management, but listen, we're spending more money than ever on the system. It's still not where Manitobans want it to be, so we need to push. And ending mandatory overtime, to me, is one of those things that will never happen unless we say, you got to do it by this date. And so we're taking that step now.
When's it going to happen?
Well, we got to introduce the bill first.
But before the next election?
Correct.
It'll be in place?
Yes.
The law?
Yeah.
Mr. Premier.
Well, it should be in place by the end of next legislative session, if not sooner.
Mr. Premier, I'm going to ask this, and I'll get to it. Can governments actually do anything to lower grocery prices? Because in here it even says a study to try and find new ways You've been in government
Yeah.
2 years, now you're doing a study to try and find ways. Can your government, can any government actually lower grocery prices? Because it says to try and find new ways. What will you actually study?
Well, the first thing we did was we cut the gas tax to put more money in your pocket for when you go to the grocery store, among other things. And now my hope is that we're going to take this study to understand what is driving grocery prices in Manitoba so that we could come back to you by the spring budget with some concrete steps to help you on the cost of living.
On the new rules to stop unfair rent increases, what do you see big picture as far as there's lots of housing being built, but still, you look at some of the national firms and list Winnipeg as still one of those tighter markets on the renting side. For those young folks that are, maybe ultimately trying to get into a home, but kind of still stuck on that rent side, what is your government looking at in that area, sir?
Well, we want to help you with better rent and more affordable cost of living. It's always a balancing act because at the same time when you're renting an apartment, you want the maintenance, right? You don't want your space that you're living in to go downhill. So we have to have some understanding for the need for landlords to invest in their properties. And so when we introduce this bill, I'm thinking it's going to be a good balance of ensuring that, landlords are going to get what they need to be able to keep up the investments, but the person paying the rent, are going to be able to have greater clarity that we'll have something closer to real rent control in Manitoba.
You had a bill on this a couple of sessions ago. It died on the order paper. I understand there's probably more of a need for a consultation. Is it going to be much
That's right.
like that bill?
I think, the previous legislation had some pieces that I think that everybody agreed on, both people advocating for the renter perspective, others from the landlord perspective. We took some time to hear concerns about the parts that people didn't agree on, and I think we're bringing back a balanced approach this legislative session. Again, cost of living, it's number one for so many people, but at the same time, how do we help you with the cost of living, but also making sure that there's upkeep on your building, that the heat, the drains get cleared, all these other challenges. So it's not an easy problem, but people need help with the cost of living. So we're gonna keep pushing this forward.
For the four new schools, where will those be located?
Those are ones that were previously announced in the budget, so we can get you the locations, but I believe it's Brandon, River East, Seven Oaks, Winnipeg School Division.
What's different about the meth sweep versus, the regular course of business for police?
I think what I'm hoping to see is everyone in Manitoba knows we got a major issue with meth. We've added more resources for the Winnipeg Police Service, and I really appreciate the job that they've done. The RCMP, huge fan of the work that they do as well too. And I think what I'm hoping to see is just more collaboration and coordination. In other parts of the country, maybe there's just one police service, they do it all themselves. Here in Manitoba, we're just going to step up and have this meth sweep go on in a way that makes sure that WPS, RCMP, all the police services, that they're all working at the table together to get rid of this scourge of this super high-powered meth that's causing a lot of damage in our communities.
Does this involve you putting them in a room together, or how does this play out?
Yeah, I think, a coordinating task force to crack down on meth use and making sure that all the police agencies are a part of that. But obviously the two biggest actors in the room, the two biggest police services are Winnipeg and the RCMP. So what I'm hearing, and you probably hear the same, first of all, the impact of meth is terrible. Two, because of some of the things that make us competitive economically, having, basically a number of trade corridors pass through our province also means that a lot of drugs can enter our province. Are we doing everything we can on the law enforcement side to intercept that and disrupt that? Well, we're going to try and see if we can do more. And then when we think about the fact there's many, many vulnerable people in our province, people who are predisposed to addictions because of having a rough life or because of, socioeconomic factors, it just creates that greater responsibility that we have to take more action. So this task force is another way for us to bring people around the table and just say, let's tackle this problem together.
For the twinning work between Ontario and West Hog, it says it will begin next year. Is that design, or is that actually shovels in the ground?
Chainsaws in the ground, is that a term? I think you'll see Well, first of all, let me correct that. You should never run the blade of your chainsaw into the ground. I was just trying to make the phrase work with the way you constructed the question. Okay, it's not recommended maintenance for steel or Husqvarna. Anyways, I digress. You'll see the clearing happening. You'll see the first steps. Are we going to be laying down pavement next year? Probably not next year, but the work is underway.
How many properties might be facing expropriation with the 20?
Well, what we're talking about right now is from the Ontario border to West Hawk. So I don't know that there will be any properties. I think some of those conversations will happen when we get to the Barron Lake and, you know, some of those further phases.
What's the preferred route? Has that been chosen?
Well, I'm not an expert here, but somebody who's driven that stretch, I can tell you that that Barron Lake stretch will be the most challenging segment to get built.
There was a graphic a few months ago that showed just potential alignments.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you know
like,
which way
I work in government and people bring those forward all the time and, you know, like, just use your critical thinking cap. Like, there's one way out here. They're probably not super serious about that. The other two, you could maybe use some powers of deduction to figure out what's going on there.
North of the ranch in Falcon Beach,
Yeah,
for example.
yeah.
And then there's obviously going on the existing alignment, so.
Yeah, or closer
will,
to it.
Basically, will there be a new road built going north of that ranch, or will there be a redo essentially of that existing?
That's why we're starting with Ontario border to West Hawk, because that's still being sorted out. Yeah, I would give you a solid answer if we had one, yeah.
Quick question on something I didn't see in here. I'm just wondering, with your government, a successful search of the Prairie Green landfill. I know there's been, verbal confirmations with the Nebenak family, with Sue Caribou about, the Brady landfill search. I'm just wondering, why nothing regarding that was in here.
The first stage of the Brady search is for Ashley Shingoose. So that, like, we are well underway to entering the search of the targeted zone in December. So we've done the hiring, we've done the site work, the structures are in place. The city's been a great help on this one. The WPS have been a great help on this one. So we're moving ahead with the search for Ashley Shingoose. And then, well, I hope we can return her to her family. And then I hope we can move on to Tanya Nepenak's family and doing right by them next. So this is something I'm deeply committed to on a personal level. We never asked for this, but this became one of the issues that we had to address in our government. And so we've said when somebody goes missing, we go looking, and we intend to keep that commitment to these other families too.
Security rebates, what's the total funds for homes? It's $300 for homes and $2,500, I think, for businesses. So what's that total pool of money?
It's in the millions. We can get you a specific number offline. We'll follow up on that with Chris.
Premier, you've always said that there would be a balanced budget towards the end of term one.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the tobacco settlement dollars, and tax revenue continues to flow. Given the realities of what we've seen federally, how do you get there, sir? How do you really get there? And what sorts of pressures is this government on? I know you've kind of put that out there that you want to balance this budget, but do you feel that Manitobans, given your priorities, really need you to balance that budget? Like, are you still absolutely this is going to happen, and what do you need to do to be able to get there, sir?
There's a very narrow path, and we need to walk that narrow path effectively, meaning we got all these great ideas on healthcare and stuff we want to do on the economy, and we got to execute those while still being responsible with spending, growing the economy, and being balanced when it comes to revenue. So that's the very narrow pathway, but yes, we're going to balance the budget.
I know Steve has a follow-up.
Steve, Tom, Jeff, Ian, I'm sure everybody's got a follow-up.
Reading some bond rating agency reports, they talk about revenue levers that you're open to help get you to balance.
That's not part of the narrow path.
On the revenue side, you have made tax changes in each budget to increase the overall tax take. What can we expect in the spring budget in terms of revenue levers?
Spring budget, we'll be looking to save you money on groceries, and that's why we're starting with this grocery study today, just to figure out what's the most effective way. What is going on in Manitoba's grocery market that's leading to the prices you pay, you know, the big chains, the smaller independent operators, you know. I'm out there at Costco at 6:30 in the morning trying to figure this thing out, so we gotta deliver for you on this one.
No, any tax increases in the spring budget?
No.
Who will be leading the grocery study?
It'll be internal, so it'll be folks like in the Bureau of Statistics and Finance and departments like that.
And on the combustion turbine facility,
Yeah.
what's the timeline for those upgrades and what's the environmental impact going to be?
Well, we're on a path to net zero, so the environmental piece is something that we're going to look at throughout. And the big commitment that we made in terms of generating electricity is that it's going to be net zero. So these are plants that fire when we need the extra power. They don't necessarily fire year-round, right? And so what can we do in terms of offsetting that firing period to make sure that we're doing right by climate change and fighting against global warming? That's part of the plan. You're going to see Hydro consulting with their integrated resource plan in the coming weeks, and that'll have a bunch of these details in there. Similarly, the overall mix of power that we're bringing online includes 600 megs of wind. We might even go bigger than that, right? And when you put the new wind resources together with these combustion turbines, you have a path to growing the amount of power that we have while still maintaining the mix of renewables that we have. And then when we add the demand side management and the other steps that we take on the economy, hopefully phasing out natural gas for hydrogen or renewable methane in the future, that's how we get to net zero.
Is this what Hydro proposed back in the spring, like 1.4 billion, 500 megawatts? Is this the same facility?
Sorry, can you repeat the numbers again?
Yeah, sorry. Like back in this, earlier this year, Hydro proposed a $1.4 billion spend on a new fuel burning station capable of 500 megawatts.
Well,
Is
the
this
numbers are
expand-
different, but effectively, we're talking about a generating facility.
But it's sort of the same plan, same spot for,
It's going to be in Brandon.
yeah.
And you mentioned 2 turbines?
Three
Three
turbines.
3 total, okay.
Yeah, 3 turbines, 250 megs each. Anything more than that, you probably got to get Hydro to answer the questions for you.
Back on Carberry, when
Yeah.
the R cut was pulled off the table, you said you would listen to you would continue to listen to the experts on what would be the path forward. When you spoke earlier about the option, you spoke of the residents and what they wanted. Are there experts that you listen to that
Yeah,
support
definitely.
it? Like, I guess, which experts support this move for an overpass?
So you also note in my opening comments, or at least on this topic, that I said that it scores the same, slightly better in terms of safety. So that's expert opinion, that's engineered analysis. That's who we're listening to.
And if other communities come to you and say, well, look, we've got a similar intersection, there's a bunch of them. across
Listen,
Trans-Canada.
I have no doubt we're going to build an R-cut in Manitoba someday, but it's not going to be at the site of this terrible tragedy, just given the sensitivity
No,
for
my
it.
question is, you've got similar intersections across the province on the Trans-Canada. Other communities may now say, well, we get an overpass, the traffic volumes aren't much different at this intersection.
Maybe. That's why I asked the Department of Transportation, don't design some bespoke exchange that is like going to cost us an arm and a leg. Figure out what North Dakota and Minnesota do, where they have one of these things every few kilometers, right? Give me a modular design that we can repeat over and over and over again. And that way, you know, maybe we're going to build an R-cut at the next location. Maybe it'll be an overpass. But again, we got to find a way to be responsible with your tax dollars.
Highways 1 and 16 was looked at by the previous government. Any plans to look at that?
I'm sure it'll be part of the coming plans for the Department of Infrastructure, but no specifics, no news to make there today. Yeah.
You mentioned in here in the speech the North End Water Pollution Control Center.
Yeah, that's like when we're done writing it, we're like, okay, what are all the check marks we need to check off before we put this thing to bed?
The city has its commitment of $547 million for the 3rd phase. They're going to borrow to do that. They announced last week, making it official. Now waiting on the province and the feds they're hoping for, of course, a third. There's talk of the infrastructure bank as well, the federal where's the province on this on dollars? And I don't know if you re-mentioned it to Mr. Carney again on the weekend, but where's the province at?
Well, I think you can count on us to get this thing done, but I want responsible use of your money on this project. How many times has this thing gone over budget? And so just coming forward with a blank check, I don't know about that. But driving down, like, how do we make sure that this thing gets broken up in a certain way where you can deliver on budget at each stage? That's what I wish had been done from the start, and that's what I want to see happen now. So yeah, we're gonna figure this out, and if anyone wants to know the details, we spent 100% of our bandwidth with the federal government getting the funding for phase 2 last year. Everything that we could, throw at the federal government in terms of getting the phase 2 funding, we did, right? And we'll figure this out, but there's a lot of other needs in Manitoba too. You go outside the perimeter, super fast growing communities, particularly in southern Manitoba. They got big wastewater needs too. So we got to find a balance as well. We'll get the North End plant done, absolutely. I want to see that plant done on budget. But RSR, Pembina Valley Water Co-op, Morden, right? Like you keep going on to the Portage area, Central Plains. There's so many needs out there. So we just got to take a holistic approach and make sure this project hits closer to the budget target so that we can make sure that these other projects have the resources they need to.
A new patient portal, will every Manitoban be able to see their, lab results and immunizations? Like, are we going to be able to do?
In the future, that is the plan. Yeah, I don't.
This year.
Like, again, not necessarily all those services that you described. I think the thing we're most excited about is a digital health card. And for everybody out there who's going to run to their YouTube subscribers, this is optional. This is optional. You don't have to get a digital health card, right? But it's one more option for people who are fine with it. People who, use your Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet. This will be one more step towards making healthcare more convenient for you.
Is this in conjunction or with Dynacare? You signed that long-term deal with Dynacare. And I think part of the language was
in
to
the long
explore
term.
that, yeah.
In the long term, yeah, not in this initial next few steps. Going into 2026, your digital health card, totally optional. You can keep plastic health card if you want it, but if you want a digital health card, you'll have an app there. You'll have the Dynacare app open in a different tab. That's what it'll look like in 2026. But the hope is going forward, we're laying the steps so that in the coming years in Manitoba, you launch an app, your health card, your test results, booking an appointment at one of the clinics that we've opened, seeing what your place is in terms of a procedure, that you get all that on your phone or
Fax
whatever
machines
device.
Someday, fax machines?
Yeah, I made some bold statements during the elections about fax machines, and then you get into office and it's like, hey, let's do the staffing first and worry about the faxes later.
The speech says in the new year we'll launch a new patient portal. So what will be in that portal when it launches?
Yeah, well, you'll have some of the services that I just talked about, but not all of them. It'll be like a minimum viable product kind of approach.
Anything else?
The
Yeah.
Manitoba, sorry.
J'avais une question par rapport à l'organisme international de la francophonie. Si le Manitoba parvient à rejoindre cet organisme-là, j'aimerais comprendre ce que ça permettrait de changer au Manitoba, ce que ça permettrait d'apporter un peu concrètement.
Ben, j'espère de juste créer une réalisation qui a beaucoup de francophones dans l'ouest du Canada. Et puis être là avec la France et puis avec les membres de la francophonie d'Asie, d'Afrique, des autres régions du Canada. Et juste pour leur montrer, oui, il y a beaucoup de francophones dans l'ouest du Canada. Je pense que ça va réaliser des étapes symboliques, mais aussi culturelles et économiques. Alors, c'est une étape importante. Et puis, en même temps, quand on est là, on pourrait apprendre des choses, des opportunités pour peut-être promouvoir des services dans la langue française ou aussi attirer plus de monde de venir ici en tant que des nouveaux arrivants dans notre province.
Une dernière question pour la francophonie, mais la charte des patients dont on parlait un peu plus tôt, est-ce qu'elle assurera quelque part un accès aux services en français pour les patients?
Ben, je dois consulter notre législation, notre projet de loi pour vous répondre. Oui. Ben, on pourrait peut-être attendre l'introduction de ce projet de loi, vous partager cette information.
Mais
Oui.
est-ce que c'est quelque chose...
C'est toujours une priorité, oui, dans Santé Sud et puis dans l'hôpital à Saint-Boniface et dans les autres régions, oui.
Yeah, the Crown Indigenous Corporation, is that solely going to be focused on the Port of Churchill, or what's the mandate of that?
The Crown Indigenous Corporation is going to be a way that we can work with the Indigenous nations in Manitoba to commercialize opportunities. The big opportunity that we see right now is the Port of Churchill. Best case scenario, we attract the investment necessary to build up the Port of Churchill. First Nations and Métis governments see jobs and see economic opportunities increase as a part of that. And then we still have this Crown Indigenous Corporation that we could use for further opportunities in the future, whether that's in mining or energy or manufacturing or whatever it is. The idea is to create a vehicle where we can just have everyone at the table to pursue economic opportunity together. I'm very appreciative of Grand Chief Wilson and other leaders, President Chartrand of the MMF, who've put a ton of work into this already. When you see us introduce this bill, when you see us announce, board members and stuff like that, the details around this Crown Indigenous Corporation, it reflects a ton of work being put in over the past year by people towards pursuing the idea that we want to build Manitoba up for everybody and to get some big projects built in our province. So I think it's a good news story from that perspective. And this in terms of like concrete, given the interest in Churchill and the fact that Prime Minister was here, he set up his process, which is the Major Projects Office. It's Bill C5 and the Major Projects Office. For us in Manitoba, it's the Crown Indigenous Corporation. Let's have everyone together at the table. We're all going to benefit economically. We're going to have shared decision-making power within that Crown Indigenous Corporation. And then the Major Projects Office, it'll be the Crown Indigenous Corporation engaging with them on that design that you heard the Prime Minister talking about in terms of next steps to pursuing Churchill and other opportunities.
And a quick question for clarity on the supervised consumption site. Health Canada has Health Canada has a stream, I think, called urgent public health needs for application process. Are you going through that process to get it done by
I believe so. We can confirm that for you. There is a requirement around some consultation and a few other standards that they have, so we can get you the details on the specific stream we're applying to. And but it sounds like that's the one we're using. Yeah.
I guess what's the urgency?
The urgency is that people are dying of overdose in our province all the time. This is one of the tools that doctors in addictions medicine tell us will help. And so we're doing recovery. You all saw the sobering center yesterday. We're doing safe sobering. We have all these different interventions. This is one more tool to complement those other tools to try and save lives, get people back onto a positive life, and then also just make our streets safer.
Just to follow up to Gabby's question, who will choose or select the board members for the Crown Indigenous Corporation?
Well, those are some of the details we'll announce when we're there, but the idea is that Indigenous governments will choose their representatives, and we as a province will choose ours. Of course, we'll probably name some people who have good relationships and understanding of Indigenous economic development, economic reconciliation. And typically in a joint venture, one partner chooses 51% and the other one 49%. But as a gesture towards being serious about shared decision-making, our board composition and decision-making power will be 50-50 in this. Right, yeah, we do have a football team waiting. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.